Welcome to BC's Sunday Rant. This is not Sunday in the interest of glasnost. This is Friday, but I'm going to tell you this story and I'll upload it Sunday. Most of y'all, if you've been with me for a while, you have heard of my postal problems. It started with my house in Sibley, Louisiana. Within a week, the guy that delivers the mail let me know just how he felt about me when I was out front of my house at the dead end in front of my house. I was working on my truck up on a ladder, my big truck, my Kenworth, and I saw the mailman coming down, and I thought I would step down off the ladder and introduce myself, shake his hand. I was brand new in the neighborhood. And I did that, and as he approached me, I waved and expected him to, what a normal person do would stop and meet the new guy. And he ignored me, and he went around me, and he drove across my extension cords and around my ladder and around the front of my truck and drove up in my front yard and made a big circle over to my mailbox. And I thought that was the strangest thing I'd ever seen. So 6 months go by, and every time I come home, I park my truck out in front of my house at the dead end. And this guy is making bigger and bigger circles around my truck up into my front yard. And I don't mean a little bit of grass. I mean way up into my front yard to make a circle and fast. And he's just digging up my grass. So I say something to the guy like, can't you back up in my driveway? I've got a huge concrete driveway for you to back up in. I mean, you're tearing up my yard and you're going to end up hitting my dog. My dog lays out in the front yard when I'm working on my truck, and he lays there and watches me. And he was just a rude son of a bitch is what he was. He said, no, we're not allowed to back up. And if your truck's in the way, then I have to go around it. Oh, really? So, I'm kind of type A. I'm a very polite person, and I would much rather be somebody's friend than somebody's enemy. But in all honesty, when you get on that side of me, the demon comes out, and I'm going to give you back just exactly what you give to me. I mean, I think I'm only human in that respect. So I put a fence up right at the edge of my property line, and I started pulling my truck close enough to my fence where he couldn't get around the front of my truck, and forced that SOB to pull up in my driveway and turn around. So then he says, well, I can't deliver your mail anymore because your mailbox is not at regulation height. So I said, well, what height is it supposed to be? And he says, well, you have to find that out. Okay. So I Google it, and sure enough, I was like 2 inches off the minimum height. So I took a shovel and dug 3 inches of dirt away from where you would measure from the ground to the entrance to the mailbox. And the next time I saw him, I said, hey, I got my mailbox fixed. And sure enough, he comes out there with a tape measure, and it fell within the guidelines. So he starts delivering my mail again. And ongoing with this guy was just such an asshole. And I know I'm using bad language, and I just couldn't believe. Over the years, the guy did some just insane stuff. He would purposely leave my mailbox open in such a fashion that the rain would be funneled into my box when I was gone, and I'd get home and I'd have just soaking wet mail. And you would have to purposely do this because it had a magnet that held it closed. And I watched him do it one time. The magnet would pull the door closed, and he would pull the door open just far enough where the magnet wouldn't attract it and pull it closed. He was a son of a bitch. So I got a post office box. I had all my mail sent to my post office, and I cut that mailbox down, and for about 10 years, I didn't get any mail at my house. And that's the end of that story. It's really not the end, but it was ongoing with that guy until he retired. So here I am in Wascom. New house, new post office, new delivery people. And it's the same freaking story. The guy, we have all our mailboxes inside our property line, and we want to be able to close the gate so the dogs won't, I mean, the driveway is a very, very long, curving driveway, and the mailman comes in here to the boxes, which are really not supposed to be inside the property line. They're supposed to be outside where they were. And the only reason they were inside is because a long time ago, a lady was disabled here. Actually, the house I'm at right now, which is Bev's house, that lady had the boxes moved inside the fence so she wouldn't have to walk so far to get her mail. So the guy has been coming in the property, the postal delivery guy, and turning around in what is now my driveway. Well, my truck is there now, so we can't turn around there. Anyway, we told him that we'd like to move the boxes back outside the fence where they were for the last 30 years. And he has a problem with it. I can't believe he's got a problem with it. It's, less that he has to travel to bring our mail to us. So he says, well, you'll have to talk to the postmaster. And in the meantime, I'm working on taking apart the boxes because they're in a couple of 100 pounds of concrete. So I was working on one box, and my wife was standing there with me, and I was trying to get this concrete up out of the ground. So I've got the box off the post because I don't want to break the box. It's like cast metal. And he drives up to us. He sees me and my wife at the box. The box is on the ground. And instead of handing us our mail, he drives past us and goes and turns around in my driveway. And my wife stops him and says, do you have any mail for us? And he goes, what number are you? He knows us. We've talked to him like 10 times about moving these boxes. And he didn't want to give my wife our mail because our box wasn't on the ground. So, okay, now I realize I have encountered another frickin' loony-ass mailman. He reluctantly puts the mail in my wife's hand. So I go to the postmaster, and I say, look, we want to move our boxes back outside where they were. They were only moved inside the fence, inside the property, because the lady who used to own this house was disabled, and she couldn't walk that far to get her mail. So we'd like to put them back where they were for the last 30 years. And she said, well, I have no problem with that, just as long as there's a place for him to turn around, and there is. And to make certain, I went out there and I cut a big oak tree down to the ground. I didn't leave a stump, I cut it down to the ground so we'd have even more room to turn around. There's so much room there that the big UPS truck has no problem turning around. Well, this new mailman, it's new to me. I mean, he's not new here. I'm new here. This new mailman has decided that he's just not going to be happy with us moving these boxes out. I have no idea why. He still has to. He keeps saying, well, we're not allowed to back up. So what are you saying? That people who live on dead-end roads can't get their mail unless you can pull into their driveway and turn around? I mean, what is the deal? So he starts doing what the old mailman did at my old place. He pulls up to my mailbox, and I would go show you, except it's pouring rain out, which is why I got my truck in here. I'm going to work on my truck. I got to replace a third brake light gasket, the heater blower resistor. Something's wrong with it. I got to fix that. I'm going to clean my mass airflow sensor, my throttle body, and I'm going to take a look at my throttle position sensor. Anyway, that's another video. That's why I'm in here. So he starts pulling up to my mailbox and driving up into my neighbor's house yard. And there's, I can hear the rain, or else I'd go out and show you what I'm talking about. It's raining pretty hard. He starts driving up in my neighbor's front yard to turn around. I cannot believe it. And he does this for about a month. Now, I'm not going to say nothing because I do not want trouble with a postman. I just want my freaking mail. That's all. So my neighbor comes over and I talk to him. He's a nice guy. He says, hey, have you seen that mailman come up and turn around in my yard? And I told him the story. I told him the story about my old mailman. and how that guy would just drive up in my front yard and think nothing of it and started putting ruts, and he would run over hoses, and if I was working on my truck, he would drive over my equipment, and he was just a freaking Looney Tune. And now this guy is behaving the same way. It's like you can't work for the post office unless you have mental problems. So he asked me if he's driving up in his front yard. I said, yeah, he is, and there's more than enough room to turn around here. The UPS guy manages to turn around, and he's got 3 times the wheelbase that this guy with the mail Jeep has. And the FedEx guy comes up here in his van and turns around without a problem. And, I even cut an oak tree down just to give him more room so he wouldn't complain. So the neighbor goes to the postmaster and complains about the mailman driving up in his front yard when there's plenty of room to turn around. So she is rude and mean and unpleasant to my neighbor because he wants the mailman to stop driving in his yard. He's got kids, he's got a little puppy, and nobody wants somebody driving in their front yard. Who would think that's okay? I only got a couple minutes left. I know this was a long one. So the postmaster is really ugly to him, and later on he calls me and he says, I might have screwed up. She said you couldn't deliver mail down there, and he told her. So you're saying that people who live at dead-end roads cannot receive their mail unless somebody allows the mailman to turn around in their front yard. Is that what you're telling me? And she wouldn't answer him. He left. An hour later, I see the postmaster drive up here in her vehicle to my mailbox and turn around. No problem. So that day, we did not get our mail. The next day, which was yesterday, somebody else delivered our mail. So I got no idea now what's going on. Let me take a sip of coffee. So we are right back where I was with the first mailman. I have encountered another frickin' loony-ass mailman that's got mental issues, and for some reason took issue with us moving our mailboxes back outside where they were. I put them in the same friggin' holes where nobody had for 30 years, nobody had a problem with it. And now this mailman has a problem with it. So there you are. There's my mailman story, my Sunday rant. I hope you had a good weekend. And my house is coming along. They're doing such a nice job on the inside. I'm really impressed, really. They're doing way better a job than I would have expected. And they're doing things that I just wouldn't think they'd fix. I thought I would have to fix myself. And really, I'm so thoroughly pleased with the job they're doing. I'm shocked. You don't encounter people that are this diligent and good at their job very often. So have a good weekend, y'all.